If you listen carefully to the justification that Trump gave there for circumstances in which he might invoke it, you would say, well, actually, this is something that people in the Trump administration, the conditions that people in the Trump administration argue have already been met, i.e. people are being shot and there's resistance in the courts. Well, in Oregon, we've seen now not once but twice, judges blocking Trump from sending National Guard troops into Portland, that city in the Democrat-led state. And in Chicago, we've seen a judge not block it under no circumstances, but say that they're going to wait until Thursday before making a decision.
We head to the US to find out what's happening in Washington, and Lara Spirit is our woman cartwheeling through the corridors of power as ever. Hello, Lara.
Hi, Hugo.
Thanks for being with us. Let's begin with these talks that are happening in Cairo at the moment between delegates from America, Israel and Hamas. Not that many details have emerged so far about the progress of the discussions, but we do know that Donald Trump told Hamas it would face complete obliteration if it failed to comply. How long, Laura, is this process expected to last?
Well, Trump has said, as indeed Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, has, that we should expect news on this soon. They want to get this done as quickly as possible. They have said repeatedly that getting the hostages out is a first order priority, and that will be one of the key things that negotiators in Sharm el-Sheikh will be discussing today. And indeed, the Egyptian foreign minister has said that they're talking about implementing the first stage of this 20-point peace proposal from President Trump, that we had that agreement from Netanyahu towards, and also, of course, an agreement with conditions from Hamas at the end of last week. And the Egyptian foreign minister saying the hostage and the prisoner release and, of course, the entry of aid to Gaza will be the first stages of discussion in Sharm el-Sheikh today.
Right. OK, well, linked to this, certainly linked to this, or at least Donald Trump would hope, the recipient of this year's Nobel Peace Prize is going to be announced on Friday. Donald Trump will be sitting by the phone waiting for his name to be called. But can he actually win it? The president's been pretty clear on how much he thinks he deserves it. Let's remind ourselves of his claim about his peacemaking skills.
In a period of just 7 months, I have ended 7 unendable wars. They said they were unendable. And sadly, in all cases, the United Nations did not even try to help in any of them. I ended 7 wars, dealt with the leaders of each and every one of these countries, and never even received a phone call from the United Nations offering to help.
Lara, a lot of this has been disputed, and the only person who seems to think Donald Trump's ended 7 wars is indeed Donald Trump. I think he counts the war between Israel and Iran among them, which it supposedly ended by bombing. Nonetheless, I mean, do people in Washington think that Donald Trump has ended 7 wars?
Well, some Republicans certainly do, and have been among those who have put forth Trump's name officially to the Peace Prize Committee in order to try and nominate him for this Peace Prize, citing before, for example, his brokering of the Abraham Accords, which of course normalized relations between Israel and several Arab countries back in 2020. Whether or not he'll win that, I think, is another question. Some of those nominations that he's received publicly, for example, from Benjamin Netanyahu, and actually from Pakistan's government as well. And Pakistan and India is one of the conflicts that Trump touts, in his view, having solved. They actually occurred after the deadline, which was in February the 1st, for this particular award. Obviously, as you've just heard, Trump thinks that he deserves one. He said it multiple times. He said it at the United Nations gathering recently. He said, everyone says I should get the Nobel Peace Prize. He also, at a gathering of military leaders in Virginia last week, said that he expected, even so, that he wouldn't get it. He said, touting those 7 wars, nobody's ever done that. Will you get the Nobel Peace Prize? Absolutely not. They'll give it to some guy who didn't do a damn thing. So I think you can expect what the response will be if Trump doesn't get a Nobel Peace Prize. But for now, plenty of people, I'm sure him chief among them, are hoping that it might well go his way.
I mean, I suppose it would be a bit peculiar to win a Nobel Peace Prize in the same year that you changed the Department of Defense, the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War. But I mean, Obama was the last president to win a Nobel Peace Prize, and one could argue that he hadn't really done much to deserve it at that point either.
Well, it's a very good question. And in some of the public commentary about why experts suspect that Trump might fall short this time, they say, the focus often from the committee is on more durable, lasting peace that perhaps is built through multilateral means and an emphasis on multilateral institutions. probably an indication of why they thought Obama might have won in circumstances where perhaps Trump won't. And plenty of people can and will take issue with perhaps that criteria. And as you say, there is some kind of, I think, well-sourced skepticism about the prize in this particular respect. But I think your point about the War Department is really interesting because one of Trump's massive plays is his ability to negotiate and bring peace, durable, lasting peace, in his view, to various corners of the world. But you have this renaming of the Department of Defense to the Department of War. And in that address that I just mentioned last week, at those hundreds of military leaders that were summoned to Virginia in very unique circumstances for an address from Pete Hegseth, the War Secretary, I should say, was very, very clear about the fact that they wanted this war posture to be front and center of everything that they do now. And they felt that that was very important. So I think you're right to mention that as a possible source of dissonance. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's potentially not just foreign wars, because the president has also threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act to allow him to deploy the National Guard troops to Chicago and Portland. He's called Portland a burning hellhole, compared Chicago to a war zone. He's been responding basically to ongoing anti-ICE protests throughout the country. Here he is justifying the need for the National Guard in these cities.
Most of these cities are Democrat-run, and we don't care, Democrat, Republican. We're going to make them safe. So we have to save Chicago. It's very important. And you can't have a governor getting up and saying it's good when 11 people were shot over a weekend. What?
The Insurrection Act, under what conditions or terms would you?
Well, I'd do it if it was necessary. So far it hasn't been necessary, but we have an Insurrection Act for a reason. If I had to enact it, I'd do that. If people were being killed and courts were holding us up, or governors or mayors were holding us up, sure, I'd do that.
Lara, what is the Insurrection Act?
Well, exactly. It hasn't been invoked for some time, it's fair to say. And the basis behind it would say that if there is an insurrection domestically, then it would authorize a huge amount of federal authority and response in order to bring that down and to heal. Clearly, they haven't done this yet because they feel that there is a very high bar for this. Although if you listen carefully to the justification that Trump gave there for circumstances in which he might invoke it, you would say, well, actually, this is something that people in the Trump administration, the conditions that people in the Trump administration argue have already been met, i.e. people are being shot, and there's resistance in the courts. Well, in Oregon, we've seen now not once but twice, judges blocking Trump from sending National Guard troops into Portland, that city in the Democrat-led state. And in Chicago, we've seen a judge not block it under no circumstances, but say that they're going to wait until Thursday before making a decision. Now, some people are saying that might give Trump an opportunity to bring National Guard troops into Chicago before then. And there are reports in CNN that that there are already National Guard troops from Texas that have arrived in neighboring Indiana. So I think very interesting to watch how this plays out. Clearly, if you listen to the language from Stephen Miller, for example, one of Trump's key aides in the White House on domestic terror networks, and the idea that there is an enemy from within, and the language of enemy from within was used by Trump explicitly at that military generals meeting last week, you would say that actually we're heading for something of a showdown in these particular cities.
And look, considering this, sort of impartially, is there a credible argument that the situation in these cities is so dire that it does require a kind of domestic military occupation? Or is this a political game really that's being played?
Well, it's a very good question. And of course, journalists have been descending on Portland and Chicago for some time now to take stock of the situation on the ground there. And you have had, some pieces coming out of Portland saying the persistent ICE protests have been difficult. There have been some journalists that have reported difficulty there. And you have others that are saying, actually, you go to Portland and you see people going about their normal morning farmers market shop. And it's a very, very pleasant place. Clearly, there will be conflicting accounts of this. The Trump administration says that actually these protests have been getting out of hand. In Chicago, of course, J.B. Pritzker is saying that they'll do everything they possibly can to resist the National Guard. This does allow people like Trump and others in the administration to say that they are being tolerant of crime in these cities. And one of the chief messages that the Trump administration wants people to take from this action that they're taking in these cities is that they are the ones who are serious about fighting crime, and it is the Democrats who are the ones who are resisting efforts to fight crime? And to that question, Democrats need to find a good answer, even if they are able to say in some circumstances they feel it's not an accurate representation of just how bad the protests in specific senses are, for example.
Thank you very much indeed, Lara Spirit. Always good to speak to you. You may now cartwheel away.